So I'm going to give you a suggested topic, but I'm going to show you the tooth is slowly going back to normal. So let's go over their suggested topics. Then I'll talk to you about the tooth going back to normal. This is my point about this whole situation. It's very weird that my face would change, my teeth will go out of line. They would start talking to me. I can record it, and then suddenly everyone else can record it. I've been saying now that this is, outside of your heads. So anybody who is going through this, if you record it, you'll know what's going. It's outside of your head. You'll know that this is being done to you, which I think is the big thing about this. So their suggested topics are these. They said they want to make me slip up and say somebody's name because I said I was going to write something called my real life Bronx Tale and letters to blah blah or blank blank whatever. So they said they want to slip up and say someone's name. This is part of my point with them. I think they're dealing with a different era, an era that doesn't exist today. I mean, today people actually videotape or film or whatever you want to call things that are happening, saying people's names, all this other stuff. So they want me to live in an era because they keep saying that they think I'm supposed to be like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. It's like some weird person they want me to be. And that's part of it. I think, and a lot of other people who are going through this, we're realizing that these people aren't normal people. I wouldn't sit around all day talking to anybody all day like this, like they're doing. These aren't normal people. There's something wrong with them. And I think to want me to be that type of woman that I'm not is part of how they mold their victims. And I think that's a really, they keep saying this is like a psychological operation. No, this is really telling you more about them than it's telling about the victims, because they want to mold, I feel in particular, women to be that type of woman, someone who won't talk back, won't tell anybody things. That's the main pattern with them. Don't talk. You're not acting the right way. Part of how they, let me just slide this out of the way because I don't want this thing to come back. So I got to adjust myself in the seat. Anyway, you're not acting the right way. You're not saying the right things. You're not dressing the right way. It's a pattern of trying to mold victims. And I think, when I'm telling you these things, they didn't want me to be with the people I grew up with, not the sociopaths. I'm talking about the normal people, because the normal people would allow me to be myself because they saw me as I am. Like, it's not like I was pretending to be someone else and they are like, oh, no, I was always myself. And those people like me just as I am. It's these people who come into your life who all of a sudden have problems with the way you pronounce words. You make a mistake about this. You did this wrong. You're not dressing right. These are the people who try to mold you. And that really is how you find out who they are, because they keep saying, when did you find out? When you can find out immediately, because they don't like you for you. They find you, latch onto you and say how wonderful you are, and then slowly start to try to mold you. Well, if you liked me in the beginning and you said how wonderful I was in the beginning, how come you're trying to change me? And that's part of it. They falsely accuse me. Here's the lie a day. I try to mold somebody. I don't try to mold anyone. Who has time to mold people? If you like somebody, and I used to say this, if you can tolerate someone as they are, then you're lucky. You're lucky. That's the ideal relationship. You don't have to be perfect. I can put up with your little whatevers, and you're good as you are. That's different than these people. These people say, you're so wonderful, you're so this, you're so that. And then all of a sudden, slowly start trying to mold you, start trying to change these things about you. Well, if I'm great, why can't you just put up with those things? So they said, well, we're going to try to come up with everything you used to say. Well, you wouldn't have to come up with everything I used to say if you were doing this all along, which is still a crime. I mean, we're arguing about what amount of crime. I've never seen a crime like that. How do you argue about what amount of crime? It's a crime. So the next part about this, the suggested topic was they said that I said the wrong thing about blah, blah. I'll call him blah, blah. I didn't say the wrong thing about blah, blah. They didn't even know blah, blah was a real person. They thought all along that I was making up imaginary people. Why would I make up imaginary people who other people see? Like, if you can see that person, why would I have to make that person up? It just seems bizarre that in their eyes, other people see something, yet I made it up. Because that goes back to what I'm telling you about these folks. This isn't a psychological operation on me. It's a psychological operation on them, where they don't believe anything I say or do. It's as though I have the power, I don't know, to create a whole alternate universe where other people exist and other people see and other people give me things. I get like commendations, thank you notes from them, references, but I make it up. It's something that they do in their heads that I think make them feel better about themselves. Like, I think what they do in life is when they're not feeling good about themselves or a situation, they twist and mold that to fit their thought process. So I'm going to give you an example. Like, I think what they're doing is, I'm not good enough, but if they can twist and mold it in their heads, I will be good enough. So like, I could do something well, and if they can find a way to squeeze themselves into that thing that I do well, then it's good that I did it well, because they can say, well, it's partly because of them. That's the mind trick they do. But if I do it on my own, it's not good enough. It's not, oh, no, that's not good. But let me stand next to you while you're doing it. Now it's perfect. Because what they want is this, they want the attention. They really are those types of people who, we as regular people, we're living our lives, we really don't think about attention that much because we're doing something. Like, that's what they don't want me to know. I'm 49, I knew already. I'm too busy doing something to worry about the attention. If it's good, it'll get attention. If it's not, it'll get attention too from these folks. But if it's good and all of a sudden they come in and try to say they're involved, then I know it was really good because they want the attention. And that's the mind game they play on themselves. So they also play the mind game of, they said they didn't want me to know if I was attractive or not. Again, they said I'm ugly. But they don't want me to know I'm attractive because then it will affect how I see myself. If they can trick me into thinking I'm unattractive, then I'll see myself a certain way. Again, this is what I'm telling you. These people have some sort of issue. There's a big issue with them. The next suggested topic was they sprayed something and I could smell something. So they said what they do is stimulate this area of my nose and a certain area of my brain so I can smell it a lot or smell it a little. Human experimentation. That's not okay. Nobody signs up for that. What else did they want? Their suggested topics they wanted to discuss. They said that they felt I misspoke on a video, that I should go back and listen to it. So that's part of this. My phone is a 4G. I don't have a 5G phone. So they said that they could put the voices on my phone, but I hear something vague on my phone. I have a jitterbug phone. So it's like I don't hear it clearly. Whereas if I had a 5G, I would hear it clearly. So they were trying to do this so that while I'm listening to my own videos, they doctor it. They said anytime they pump their technology in, it makes a break in the audio. So for example, I say this in, for example, if they break in, it'll say for example. So for example, if they make a break in the audio, so for example would sound like so example or example. You start to break up the words. So they said that's another way they were doctoring my videos. So they would have me sitting down to listen to my own videos after it's been doctored, after they put other words in, and driving myself nuts. Like, did I just say that? Oh my. So that's another way of doing the same thing that they try to do in person. You just said something. You just made a mistake. And I would constantly be at this height. So that's my point. They keep wanting me to talk about my underwear. Again, that's from the book. So that's part of the process, I think, of them wanting me to talk about things from the book. Again, I don't understand. They admit that they latch on to me for ideas. We already know that. They latch on to me to make money. We already know that. What I'm going to now I went through their lie a day. I did their suggested topics. I'm doing that. Everybody does that in a way now, which is that everyone talks about things that's going on in their lives. But I think what they wanted me to do is stop talking about things that go on in my life so that when they come around, nobody would believe me. Fortunately for me, again, I got to do this in every video. Fortunately for me, people saw everything that was going on along my life because there were other people around. I wasn't, I'm in New York City. Okay, we're not in some little small town where maybe there's a population of a few people. No, this is a big city. So when we're talking about what was happening, everybody saw these things. It wasn't a secret. So when I have to kind of remind the people involved in this that everyone sees you. And everybody wants to know what is it with them. And what the truth is that they want to take advantage of people. Not just me, but other people. And this was a way of doing it. If you can make someone look crazy, if you could get a person, they keep saying the word desperate. And I think I'll call this video Desperation. If you can make people look desperate or feel desperate or become desperate, then it's easier for you to take advantage of them. If you can get into a relationship with someone, it's easier for you to mold that person. And that was what they wanted to do to me. They keep saying the reason it failed, here's their explanation for why it failed, was because of blank blank. Because blank blank in their minds was the person who lifted me up. Here we are. It can't ever be me. It always has to be someone else. And that's part of my problem with this entire situation. They wanted, they're afraid as I talk about these experiences in this way, it points directly to them. It does. It does. I'm not going to put up with anybody taking credit for anything I do. Why? Because it's wrong and it's a lie. The other point about that is they said, well, they wanted to use this to cover up me inspiring the people at Lacoste. I think it's flattering that I inspired them, but it's if they're involved in surveilling me, causing me to be sick, hitting me in the head, causing me to try to hear things that aren't there, causing me to have a problem with my vision, that's beyond inspiring someone. So they said, well, they felt that if they could find how I've been inspired by someone else, it will negate the fact that I inspired them. Those two things aren't the same. The difference is if you're using me to inspire you for anything, give me credit because I inspired you. That means, and I'm going to explain it to people, if you are inspired by a person, finding who may have inspired them that you were not inspired by does not change the fact that I inspired you. Do you get what I mean? So if I'm the person inspiring you, finding out if I was ever inspired by anyone else does not change the fact that I'm the person who inspired you. Because if you could have, you would have gone directly to that person. But since I'm the one who inspired you, I get credit. That's the difference. If we're going to talk about who inspires people to do something, if the person who inspired me was not the one working around you, dealing with the same merchandise, the same environment, then that person wasn't the person who inspired you. It was me. So if you're going to try to say, well, maybe it's because you used to like Madonna. I still like Madonna, but Madonna wasn't working at Lacoste. If you want to say, well, maybe it's because you like jazz. I still like jazz, but the jazz musicians weren't working at Lacoste. We're talking about who directly inspires someone. And if I'm directly inspiring a lot of people, I expect to get funds for that, meaning paid. I expect to be acknowledged for it. And most of all, I expect them to stop surveilling me and stealing my work. There's a difference between inspiring and stealing. Theft of intellectual property is a thing. The other point I want to make that they keep talking about is they feel that if they're talking in the background and I say a word, it means that they're giving me an idea. No, they're confusing a person. It happens all the time. I've seen it happen with other people. not using this type of electronic harassment, but just in general. If you're talking and someone says something, it's easy for you to say, to say that same thing afterwards. It's just part of how our brains work. And this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the human brain here. And I think that's why they wanted this experimentation. Like I said, it's human experimentation to see what our human brains do, and then develop not only a psychological operation to cover it, it's the cover up to me, but also a psychological operation to justify it. There's no reason for me to be surveilled 24/7, have them steal my work, and then try to discredit me if they acknowledge I inspired them. But I think that was part of how this cover up works. It works by stealing from somebody and then discrediting that person so no one believes it came from that person. That's part of the problem with this situation. Another point I want to make is they said, they feel that they said they think it's MS, but they feel it comes on at a certain point. First of all, what I'm going to say is this. It's always there. If I stood up right now, you'll see more of this. That's why when I did the video where I talked about the involuntary movements, it was important because I stood up and it was worse. I got to a point where I learned to sit back and keep my body straight to avoid my back getting out of, sync, because it definitely has to do with my spine. They don't care. They said they wanted to release the audios, which I've been telling them to do, but they're afraid because you hear them and you hear their lack of empathy and how they treated me and the lies they told. In a previous video, I said they accused me of molesting my cousin. So today they said they're going to find a cousin because they went through different cousins that I may have, according to them, had that false accusation about. So they said they're going to find a cousin, they're going to come forward. And I welcome that. I welcome that. Because if you have to find somebody who may be or may not be able to lie and perjure him or herself, then you have a problem. And I want to put that out there publicly, because if they're going to convince people to do this, it's got to be public. So then they said, no, we lied. We're not going to do that. That in and of itself is so abusive, not just to me, but to every person in my family, that tells you who I'm dealing with, the types of people I'm dealing with. So I want them to come forward with this accusation so that that person can perjure him or herself, because that's what it is, perjury. The last part about that is that they said they had proof that a fight that didn't occurred. Another lie, and another way that if they were to get on the stand, they would have to perjure themselves. And it's important that you know that, because these are the accusations they were hurling at me while they were hitting me, not just on my head, throughout my body. And they had the electronic harassment so loud, so that now when they say, well, what about your underwear? It went from up here to down here. But it's still harassment. But that's who I'm dealing with. Thank you for watching.